Hi, and welcome to the Rise podcast. My name is Katie Oman, and I have set this podcast up to talk to some inspirational, phenomenal, and kick-ass women so that we can all rise up together to be the queens that we absolutely are. And I'm going to speak to just over this series, really blown away by the women that I've got. It's a magical experience that I'm so humbled to be able to host and bring this to you today. So, my very first guest is the most incredible, wonderful Laura Sylvester, and I'm so honoured that she said yes to being here with me today. So, Laura, hi, welcome. Thank you so much for saying yes. This is so cool.
Thank you so much for having me, especially as your first guest. It feels a true honour, and I feel like I've seen your name floating about so much, so it's really nice to actually get to meet you.
In the nicest possible way, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. No, for sure. Yes, no, for sure, absolutely. And I think it feels like it's come at the right time after doing such an incredible kind of festival quite recently about empowering women. So
Yeah.
It is a true honour.
Absolutely. Laura and I both did workshops at the Burning Woman Festival this year. So although we didn't get to meet each other, it's a really shared experience that we both had. So it's lovely to be able to meet someone who's been through that as well. It's beautiful, right? It really was.
100%. Yeah.
So for the benefit of everybody watching, please tell us all about you. Obviously, we don't want your entire life story. We could be here for a while, but tell us in a nutshell, who are you? What do you do? And what are you all about, really?
Yeah, so I'm a holistic self-love and empowerment coach for women, also NLP master practitioner and hypnotherapist. And I also write a monthly wellbeing column for Lancashire Life magazine, which I absolutely love. And it's my mission to just help women love and accept themselves from inside out, gain that confidence, reclaim their power, reclaim their joy, and to just live a life that feels fulfilling and to leave behind anything and everything that no longer serves them. Just busting through any self-limiting beliefs, any doubts, anything that feels like it's holding them back, any pressures from society or anything that any bad sort of learned behavior that they've picked up over the years, and just being able to help them peel back those layers and rewire their brain in order to move forwards with confidence and compassion for themselves. So that is basically a little bit about what I do. And then me as a person, I think, that's kind of what I do. And then why I do what I do is from my own history, from my own background, struggling with mental health for over like a 14-year period. And I know what it's like to be in the depths of despair. So it's why now I want to give back and help women reclaim who they really are at their soul, and just feel at peace with who they are.
That's beautiful. It's so needed right now, right? I feel like more than ever that's really why I do what I do. I feel like there is this thirst, this hunger for women to rise up, for women to come back to themselves, and for people like you and I to be able to hold space for that. I think it's just such a beautiful, I find it such an honor, I find it such a privilege to do the work that I do. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's such a pleasure to be able to guide women that, feel like they're a burden on people or that they're too much, and none of these things, and just allowing them to use their voice in such an open way for maybe the first time in forever that they've ever done that. It's incredible to watch them blossom and transform before your eyes.
Oh, it is. It's like magic, right? It really is.
And it's not even that you're telling them what to do, because they have all of the answers inside. It's just bringing them out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's connecting them to their own wisdom, and their own joy, of course, is equally as important.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I can relate.
That's
and
beautiful. I love that. So obviously we've seen what you love about what you do. That's clear. You're a passionate, like it's your purpose, it's your mission. There's no doubting that. So it's interesting the times that we're living in right now. So I wonder, what are the challenges in that space right now, and how are you trying to overcome them? Because it's not necessarily the easiest path to tread at the moment in many ways.
No. And I think one of the biggest things and the biggest challenges right now is that overwhelm with too much information out there, too many things so much stimulation from every single source around us, it gets very hard to switch off from it. Even as somebody that, helps people to switch off and come back to themselves, it's like we're almost addicted to gathering information, and it never feels enough. So I think for me, yeah, I think I like to find out more all of the time, but at the same time I can do myself a massive disservice because I'm overwhelming myself with information. So yeah, whether that's just like noise online and social media from other accounts, and then the comparison comes in, and all of the things that just kind of pushes off track a little bit and steer us away from who we are and what we need. So I guess that is one of the biggest challenges right now, is being able to find that balance between the noise and remaining true to yourself and feeling grounded. So yeah, I don't know if you feel that.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah, absolutely. And it's really strange. As much as I love what I do, and I know, like I say, it's my calling, my purpose, my passion, there is an element, an energy in personal development of almost we're continuously telling people they're a problem that needs fixing. So there is this need on one hand to keep digging and to keep looking and to keep searching for the thing, the magic beans that are going to fix everything. And it's an understanding that the right practitioners will not make you feel like you're a problem. What the answer really is, like you said, is to make you realize how wonderful you already are. So it's all of the wisdom, all of the magic, all of the light is already there. It's just helping you connect to that. It's not like you have to go and like patch yourself back together like you're some kind of scarecrow. It's just helping you see yourself clearly, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think, no one really, you don't need fixing. No one's broken. It's just about, and I think you can almost get addicted to personal development as well, in a quite a detrimental way, because people are looking for the next thing and the next thing, and you don't need to do that. I think life is a journey, and there's no destination. There's no destination for healing. And people think, oh, I haven't made it yet. I haven't made it yet. But we never make it, even the person that claims to be the most healed, they'll come across obstacles again in their life. But they then, from the work that they've done, they've got the tools to be able to navigate through it. That's the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say, if you meet somebody and they say they have all the answers and they're completely healed, run, because that person is massively in denial, or they're trying to scam you, because nobody, even the therapist, the coach, the healer, they're still doing their own work at the same time. Nobody's ever like completely fixed. It's not a thing.
No. I always tell my clients, like, don't ever think that I'm above you. Coaches need coaches, therapists need therapists. Like, we all need to talk,
Yeah.
Nobody is at the peak level of healed ever. It's just a continuous journey, and it gets to be beautiful depending on how you look at it. So
yeah, absolutely. We're all next to each other in a row. Nobody should be higher or lower than anybody else. And yes, coaches know slightly more than you do about this one thing. That's why you're working with them. But I guarantee you, whoever you are watching this, you know something way more in one subject than me and Laura do. Like, you could teach us about something. We all have skills. We all have knowledge. So it's very important to know that, I think.
Yeah, I try and make that very clear to them, because I don't ever want them to think I'm above them.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and I think that's why, I can relate, they can relate a lot to me, because I'm very sort of down to earth and very human. I'm not trying to be some sort of guru that can completely fix them, because they don't need fixing.
No, exactly. Like, I totally agree. It's like I say, it's all there. It's just a case of helping them to see that.
Bring it out,
Yeah, great. Totally. So what do people, you think, misunderstand about you the most? Now, that can be you personally or the job that you do, but what are the kind of misconceptions that you've come up against?
I feel like, so I mean, it's quite a difficult question, but I think, because when I talk about my history, so just for context, my background, my history with mental health is with an eating disorder. And often I will, I might talk about it on content online as examples of my adversity and what I've been through. And I think sometimes, you know, if I've given talks like I did at Burning Woman, people may often think that I am a coach for helping people overcome an eating disorder. And that isn't the case. So that is one thing that I think people might misunderstand about what I'm talking about and what I actually do is I empower women to be themselves, but this is my example of the adversity of why it is I do what I do. But I'm not solely a coach for eating disorders, because I think that would be quite dangerous as well, because it's I never really fully believe anyone is fully ever recovered in that sense either, because you can be completely weight restored or whatever, but really struggling with your mental health, because that's what it is. So it's something I never claim. I think, you know, if I was to call myself an eating disorder coach, I could very much get dragged back down into that world, and it could become very detrimental. So yeah, that's what I think potentially is one thing that people might misunderstand.
I love that. And it's so true, because like, and I totally, you know, I've not experienced the eating disorder myself, but certainly I've been through mental health challenges. And I know that it is a space that it's almost like a boundary around that space. It's like you can help people to a point, but you have to be aware of your own health in that space as well, because you are as important as whoever you're talking to, you know. And it's like that saying, I think, you know, if you're a parent on an airplane and the lights come up and, you know, the engines are failing, they say, despite all your natural instincts, put your oxygen mask on first, because you are no use to anybody if you're passed out on the floor.
Exactly. Yeah. That's
exactly. So, you know, as coaches, we need to make sure that we're looking after ourselves as well.
Yeah. So that is, that's kind of like where my boundary is. Yeah. I can help you as a person and be able to love and accept yourself, but I wouldn't specifically be talking about and helping somebody through that, because generally the issue is never the issue.
Yeah, of course.
Eating or whatever, that isn't the issue. There's something else.
Yeah.
No,
absolutely. I totally agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. So this is an interesting question. And whenever I mention this word, people have a reaction to it, but I think it is an important thing to talk about. What would you see as your biggest failure, and what did it teach you?
Yeah, and I love that you put that in quotations,
Always
because
do.
It's not generally a word that I use.
Me neither.
It's personally, I hate the word failure. It's not something I use. Failure to me basically means just that. It's a lesson, just a lesson. That's all it is. And we need them. We need those lessons. We need the failures, because we'll never be able to grow. So I think, I've probably had a lot of failures in my life, or lessons in my life, that have shaped who I am today. But the biggest, and I was thinking about it, and I think the biggest sort of failure then, if I was to try and pinpoint something, was not believing in myself sooner.
Yeah.
I think that's,
God, that resonates so hard. No idea.
And I think a lot of people will probably be able to relate to that.
It's really interesting, isn't it? I think once you come out the other side and you get into a space of alignment and self-love and empowerment and confidence, there is a feeling, I think, naturally of like, why didn't I do this sooner? But then I also believe in divine timing. So I think that everything you've been through almost had to happen to bring you to this space. And I think if we had tried to do this work 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it's almost like we wouldn't have been ready for it.
No, exactly. I mean, if I hadn't have faced everything that I've faced, I wouldn't be where I am. And I think, you know, that's one question people do ask, is if you could erase everything that has happened to you, would you? And I'm like, well, no, because I wouldn't be who I am right now.
Yeah, I agree totally.
I'm doing, even though it's been all hell, but I wouldn't change it, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure, because that is all part of the journey and the great destination of life, you know. And it's not one destination, it is the ultimate destination, you know. A friend of mine said that life, when you're in it, is, you know, in the moment, is like a tapestry from the back. So it's all like knots and tangles, looks a right mess. And what happens with hindsight is that you're able to turn it over and step back, and then you see how it's all connected. You see the picture that it makes, which is you, right?
That's a beautiful analogy.
It is. I think it is. I love an analogy, but yeah, I think it really just helps you to shift your mindset in that space of like this. And that was one of my biggest shifts, was it's happening for me, not to me.
Yeah, I love that one as well. Yeah, it's always a good way of looking at something and turning something around. Yeah.
For sure, absolutely. And they're trying to get the silver lining in the cloud, even if it's like too tiny.
Yeah, it makes a difference though.
Oh, it really does. I was talking about that today on the coaching session. I was like, it just helps you pull you through. It helps you something to hold on to. It's some hope, So yeah, it's really important, I think. Absolutely. So, interesting question, kind of morbid, but I think it's an important thing to consider. If you could be remembered for one thing after you're not here anymore, what would you like that to be?
I don't think that's a morbid question at all. Like I think people are so afraid of death. I'm definitely not one of those people.
Good.
Like it happens to all of us, we don't get to choose. So I think for me, one thing is that I'd like to be remembered for the fact that I have been such a positive influence on so many people around the world, from whatever walk of life they're from, just to really help them love and believe in themselves fully and wholeheartedly and unconditionally.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Just really being able to recognize their own greatness.
I like that. I always say in life, you're either choosing love or fear in every choice that we make. And I think to be a beacon of love, which is what I get with you, this kind of like lighthouse of love. I love, you can use that. That it's like this beaming out into the world. And I think that's beautiful. Like it all kind of comes down to that one thing, right? Everything you do is this pillar in your life.
Yeah. And I just want to be able to spread that, radiate it, and like this very podcast right now is what we're doing, is spreading that empowerment and love outward into the world and hoping it reaches as many people as it can.
Absolutely. And it reaches the people who really need to hear it today or any day, that they pick it up and at the moment it speaks to them on a very deep level. That's what we always hope for, Yeah,
and that's the beauty of these kinds of things. It's like it kind of doesn't have a timestamp. It's always going to be relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not like some kind of horoscope or tarot reading, although tarot readings is timeless as well. It is that kind of, whenever you are watching this, it's when you're meant to see it.
Yeah, for sure. Believe in that.
Absolutely. I love that. So if you could go back and speak to the 18-year-old version of you, is there any advice, or what kind of thing would you say to yourself in that space?
That's a really powerful question, because it was actually at 18 when it all began, when all of the sort of trauma and all of it all started when I was 18. So I think for me is kind of going back and being able to say, you can make your own decisions. I'd also ask, does this lifestyle serve you right now? What do you want? What do you need? And don't allow others to control you. Ask for help. It's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
You are loved and you will find your light. Treat yourself with compassion. And there was a lot there.
Beautiful. I mean, Christ almighty, like how many people need to hear those messages? Like, I think at some level we all need to hear that, right?
Yeah. If somebody, if I would have heard that from anyone, it would have helped me just to step back and think. And again, like back then, so when I was 18, it was 2009, and mental health just was not talked about. Sadly. Yeah. So then even if somebody was to have said those things to me, I probably wouldn't even know what they meant.
No, like I say, it's all part of that tapestry and that journey and that divine timing. I get it, but at the same time, there is a part of me that goes, I wish this stuff was taught in schools.
Yes.
And I think there is a shift. It's slow, because it's like, yes, I know that school education is all about passing exams so that you can go and get a job and be another brick in the wall. That's what it's for. But actually, you should be helping educate the whole person, right? You should be teaching them life skills. And this is so important.
Yeah. More important, if not.
More important. I have not used algebra once since I left school.
No. There's so much.
Once.
No.
Or triangles. I have not used, I'm not a math person, you can tell. But it's like, no, it's not. And yet we spent like weeks and weeks and weeks over this stuff, and you're like, what was the point?
Yeah, it's funny how even though today I hear so many people say these things all of the time, but still nothing's changed. I
I
find
know.
that so bizarre.
I
Yeah.
know. Well, the powers that be, and I know this is not that podcast, but the powers that be perhaps are not the right powers to make that change at this time.
Yeah,
But anyway, that's a whole different conversation for a different day, and
absolutely.
we
Yeah.
should move on. So, nice question. Who are the three most influential people in your life, and why have they really made an impact on you?
I always find these tough questions, and I find it really bad as well. I feel like because some people say some incredible people, and I think there's probably, and I'm somebody, I'm quite indecisive, and I could probably, I mean, just thinking about it now, it's hard to think, and there's probably so many people, but it is a tough question. Like no one ever springs to mind when I think about that. It's really bizarre. I feel like there should be. But I am quite an observer, so I'm potentially influenced by so many different people from all walks of life, whether it's somebody walking down the street, somebody struggling or whatever, or somebody incredibly famous, or world leader, whatever it is. But I know that my subconscious will be taking snippets of what it really needs and what it really values and is inspired by that. So that when it comes to creating my own work or just general way of being, it shines through without me knowing, whilst equally deleting anything that it doesn't need or doesn't serve. Because one of my biggest passions is protecting my own peace at all costs.
Of course, absolutely.
But one person that kind of did spring to mind when I was thinking about it was Jay Shetty. You know Jay Shetty?
I don't, but now I want to go and find out.
Oh, yes. So he has his own podcast and he lived for years as a monk. So he wrote the book, I think it's called Live Like a Monk. And his podcast is phenomenal. I mean, at the minute, it's very much based around love and relationships, which isn't as relevant to me right now. But a lot of his older stuff, it's all about helping you just to be that best version of yourself. And I think that really helped me. And it almost felt like, I'd go for a walk and I'd listen, and it almost felt like I was kind of just sat down with him in a room and having that conversation. And he's very wise. It's really beautiful. So yeah, if you haven't heard of him, go check him out.
Absolutely. I'm like literally gonna go and check out this interview because I'm like, oh, I'm intrigued. And it is, and I agree with you. I mean, there's a wonderful book, and I forget the author. I know people in the comments will be telling me. There's a wonderful book called Steal Like an Artist. And that is that we don't live in a vacuum. We don't live in a bubble, that we are constantly influenced by the world around us. Even when we're not fully and realizing that that's happening, we're picking up bits all the time from everything. And so it's not copying. It's taking all those different bits and creating something that's unique and fresh from all of those experiences and all of that knowledge, because there is no such thing as an original idea.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's it. I know that, something has come from somewhere all of the time. Nobody's ever just kind of, unless you was like the person that, I don't know, invented the light bulb, but but I get what you're saying. Yeah, but that sounds like an interesting book. I've not heard of that. So yeah.
There you go. We shared knowledge today.
Yeah.
So speaking of which, if you had to write a book tomorrow, what would the subject be?
So I love writing, and it's been, and I should have probably, I hate the word should, but it would have been good for me to have written a book already by now. In fact, more than one book. I desperately want to write a book. So I think firstly, I really want to be able to share my story, things that I've been through, the adversity, but also how what I've faced has shaped who I am today, and give that awareness to people that kind of don't know much about the realities of an eating disorder and just what they hear or assume, and also help people caring for someone with an eating disorder and what to say, because I think that there's a lot of fear around that, so people don't end up saying anything because there's so much fear that they're going to say the wrong thing or whatever. So yeah, I'd really, and it's something that will happen. I'm definitely gonna do it. But yes, something like that is gonna really just help people, educate them, inspire them. Yeah.
I think that's beautiful, and it feels like it's needed. That's the thing, because I'm listening to you talk. The best books are written by people that have first-hand experience of
Absolutely.
situations, because you're able to bring the personal to it. You're
Yeah.
able to bring something that's like real life tangible, rather than just like theory, as it were.
Yeah,
And I feel like you would be able to bring something that's like, for want of a better phrase, the good, the bad, and the ugly of the situation. And I think it would be really hard hitting at times, but also very healing for the
yeah,
reader and for you, actually.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's it. It would be incredibly therapeutic in many ways for me, but also incredibly tough, because the amount of times that I've given my speech or whatever, that when I've had to write it down and go through it, it's almost like I'm reliving it, and it can be
Yeah.
quite traumatic. But
Mm,
I think, to write it as a book, it would be, I think, an entire journey.
yeah,
It'll almost like come
absolutely.
full circle. Yeah.
Yeah. So everyone watching this, watch out for Laura's book in the future, because clearly this is going to happen. She's just manifesting it, right?
Yeah. And now I'm being held accountable.
She is. Everyone's going to be like, "Where's the book, Laura? You did
Yeah.
say, come on." So, good question, interesting question. And I saw this question from somebody else. I was like, "Oh, God, put that in, because that's brilliant." What's the one question you wish I'd asked you and I didn't? And how would you have answered it if I did?
Yeah, that's a really tough one, because I'm a great believer in that everything kind of happens for a reason. So I
Mm.
feel like you've asked me all of the questions that have been needed to ask. And if there was anything else that needed to be asked, you would have asked it. So for me,
Ooh, get out close.
yeah, I feel nothing else needed to be said because it would have been said. Um,
Mm,
and I don't think it should come from me either.
yeah,
I feel like it would come from your own intuition, what you need to ask. And I feel
very
like
nice.
you've asked some very powerful questions. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So it's been absolute, I think it's been really in depth and a lot of revelation during this conversation. And I'm sure people watching are going to want to find out more about you and the work that you do. So, how would they do that? Where can we find you?
So on Instagram, I'm at Laura Sylv, so SYLV. Also, I'm also the same on Threads if you're using Threads, because because I love to write. So it's a
Mm,
very natural, it feels like a really beautiful platform for me to be on. TikTok is self-love Sylv. Facebook, you can find me, just type Laura Sylv empowerment coach, and then my website laurasylv with 2v's.com. And I'm
beautiful.
happy to chat whenever, like my DMs, whatever you want to call it, are always open, and I always like to be able to talk to people.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally resonate with that. So, just honestly, Laura, from my heart, thank you. I feel that you're truly an inspirational woman. I think that even you don't see how amazing you are. And I really deeply thank you for talking with me today. And I know that the people listening are going to just get so much out of this conversation. So, just honestly, thank you.
Thank you too. Thank you. It's been an honor and it's been a pleasure, and I'm very grateful. So thank you to you and everyone listening.
Thank you. And everybody, thank you for watching. Look out for the next conversation, and I will see you next time. Bye.